Good evening and many thanks for watching KTN News. My name is Dennis Aseto and welcome to this edition of Planet Action, your #1 premier show on your television right now that discusses issues to do with climate change that we need to put in place to make sure that we save this place that we call home. Today we will be having a discussion on World Water Day, but today we're talking about the entire week. So this is all about the World Water Week, what it is that we are doing in making sure that this scarce resource that we need for everything, entirely everything that we do is actually preserved, is well taken care of. And to have that discussion with me, I will be talking to Ambassador Martin Brouwer, the Embassy of Kingdom of Netherlands, Karibu Sana, and also His Excellency Dr. Wilbur Otichilo, Governor of Vihiga County, who's also gracing the show today. And finally, Violet Matiru, co-founder, Millennium Community Development Initiative Foundation. Welcome to this show. But before we get to that conversation now, financing 45 counties have been earmarked for climate resilience grants from the locally led Climate Financing Action Now FLOCA program. Speaking in Kisumu, Environment CS Soipan Tuya and a Treasury counterpart, Professor Njuguna Ndungu, noted that individual counties will present their earmarked ecosystems like forests to showcase the programs for eligibility. County climate financing institutions should devote 1.5% of their development funds towards the County Climate Change Fund. Now, Alano Chanda with this report.
Deliberate efforts are underway to address the menace of climate change, and the devolved units have been roped in as the main basis for climate action programs. Under the financing of locally led climate action program FLOCA, 7.3 billion shillings resilience investment grant will be channeled towards the program.
The absence of sufficient financial support to enable inclusive community development and even adaptation to climate impacts would result in climate change pushing tens of millions of Kenyans, especially in the local level, into extreme poverty. So essentially, we have a challenge to fight. We have a challenge to reverse.
But we want to find this that we can coalesce around both at the national and county level as a showcase, as a demonstration of what we want to see of a holistic nature, climate action that will speak to the food security needs of Kenyans, that will speak to enhancing our tree and forest cover, but also just reverse the immense degradation of our ecosystems that we see across the country.
To be eligible for funding, counties had to put in place county climate finance institutions such as a county climate change fund, county climate change unit, and carry out a participatory climate risk assessment and action planning at the ward level. The devolved units should also devote a minimum of 1.5% of their development towards the County Climate Change Fund, but their choice of the ecosystems will be respected.
We are going to work with each and every individual county to earmark certain ecosystems that we can showcase the design of the FLOCA program, but also the holistic nature of the ecosystem restoration plan that we want to roll out, with the 15 billion tree initiative being part of it. Each individual county has their targets.
Some counties already have ward-based climate action committees, and ecosystems like the Kakamega Forest, Maragoli Hills in Vihiga, Mount Elgon in Bungoma have been lined up for the program.
Most of the pollution, from our lakes, from our towns, is all being discharged in the lake, and that's why we have major problems in the lake as a result of that. So we have quite a lot of challenges. Equally, our agricultural systems, the way we have moved from the original agricultural production system to our current systems, has had a major impact on our production.
All cabinet secretaries have also been allocated 2 counties to look after in terms of ensuring environmental adherence is well considered. Alano Chanda, KTN News.
Thank you, Alan, for that report. And now the world continues to deal with climate change effects on a daily basis. Extreme weather conditions have made biodiversity to continue degrading, and natural resources have equally suffered. At the center of this has been water resources. Dwindling water resources and increasing population pressure has seen dwindling water resource continue to go down now as the world observed the World Water Day. Just where are we? What do we need to do to change the tide? And are we doing enough is the big question. In studio with me, as Alia said, is Dr. Wilbur Tichilo, Governor of Vihiga County and Chair, Environment and Climate Change Committee, Council of Governors, Martin Bro, Ambassador, Kingdom of Netherlands in Kenya, and Violet Matiru, co-founder, Millennium Community Development Initiatives Foundation. Welcome on set as we continue to have this discussion. And Governor, I'll come to you straight. From that story that we've just watched right now, it is the question of financing, FLOCA financing that needs to get to the counties. Now, in terms of Vihiga County and just the Council of Governors, the frameworks that needs to be put in place, where are we with that to make sure that the counties get this money to be able to fight climate change issues?
Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity of being on this show. I would like to say that we have made great strides in ensuring that the FLOCA money, that is financing locally led climate action. The program we started way back in 2019. That's when we started formulating the program. And it's taken quite some time, but I'm happy that finally we have come to a final end where now finances are being released. And when we were in Kisumu on the other day, that's when the finances were being released. And I'm very happy to report that the 45 counties, we have all met the conditions that are required for us now to spend the FLOCA funding. And with some of the conditions that were required, we were required to have policy and legal frameworks in place. And the 45 counties have done so. The other condition that was required was that counties had to allocate at least 1.5% of their development budget on issues to do with climate change, mitigation, and adaptation. And all the counties have made that. So I want to say that we are happy. Now we are ready to roll out the programs, and that's why we were in Zoom the other day to roll out the programs. The money will be released, we are told, early next week. And after the money is released, it's counties now to focus on various projects.
And implementation.
Yeah.
And well spoken there, sir. And I come to you, an ambassador now. When it comes to issues to do with water resources, it is a resource that continues to dwindle, not only in Kenya, but the world over. Now, in terms of supplying these water, say, back home in Netherlands, how are you making sure that the populace, everybody, gets water that is clean, that is safe and reliable? And what can we as developing partners be able to learn from you?
Well, the history of the Netherlands with water is long. It goes back centuries. It was in the 14th, 15th century that parts of the Netherlands which were underwater, we reclaimed land from the water. And to do that, and to get these polders that were of land that was reclaimed, people had to work together very, very closely to secure themselves from too much water, and also to manage the water that they had in a proper way. Well, that's a short, going back into a long history, but it evolved in the end to water companies that we have in the Netherlands, water boards that we have in the Netherlands, that manage and control the supply of water, the drinking water, but also the water levels for irrigation. It is being monitored closely. It is a democratic institution, so we have all these water boards in which we organize elections every 4 years. And that's where the farmers, the industry, but also the population, they take care of making sure that the water levels under service are okay, that there is not too much excess of water, and that the supply of drinking water is regular and is of good quality. So it is really an effort that's being done and built up from the population, from people themselves. And actually, it is the oldest form of democracy that we have in the Netherlands. So all the other levels of democracy are built on that basic principle that was used to organize a proper management of water.
And I come to you, Violet. Now, here is a question where he's talked about issues to do with the budget allocations in the counties. He's addressed the simple mechanism of involving everyone in this conversation and making it democratic so that everyone has it right. Now, let us come back home. How do we enhance these water projects? How do we enhance the water resources that we have so that we get to achieve the most elusive factor of water, which is insecurity? How do we get to be water secure as a country?
I think right from the beginning, I think we as a country, the way we've approached the management of water has been, in some cases, maybe overambitious. We had the issue of saying that the government would provide water for all by the year 2000. Later studies, master plan studies, realized that the government could not do all this by themselves, and communities had lots of community water projects. So the Water Act of 2002 was designed to bring on board communities and other players into the water sector. It created the Water Resource Users Associations, and the government, through the Water Resource Authority, has delineated water resource users associations and mapped them out for the whole country. But only about 50% of these RUAs, as we call them, have been formed. And part of the problem is because of the governance. Now we have the national government and the county government. The conflicts between the national government and the county governments, RUAs have been a victim of that conflict, because RUAs are seen as an institution of the national government because they're formed by a national level institution, the Water Resource Authority. Yet the RUAs operate at the local level. So right now, RUAs, the ones which are operational, are expected to do that on a voluntary basis. We are rehabilitating wetlands on a voluntary basis. We are cleaning rivers on a voluntary basis, and that is not sustainable in the long run. And that is why we have a lot of conflict upstream, downstream, and even between counties, we also have inter-county conflicts. Especially, just to give us a quick example, the city of Nairobi receives most of its water from Kiambu County and Murang'a County. But the kind of pollution that happens of the Athi River, which runs through the city of Nairobi, and the lack of even basic harvesting of rainwater means that we are not taking our water governance seriously, and I think it's time we started changing that narrative.
Now, Governor, she's addressing the issue between the conflict between the national and the county government with regard to water issues. How do we then create synergy such that these two levels of governance tend to work together? Because at the end of the day, it is a service to the people. How do we then get rid of these misunderstandings in the management of water resources so that Kenyans get to enjoy this water in a more sustainable, affordable means, and also water that is safe for them?
Thank you. First, I want to congratulate Violet for what she has said. And actually, she has put the problem the way it is. And what now remains is how do we solve this problem so that we have everybody access to clean and affordable water. And the way forward is for us to sit on a table. The way we are seated here, the county government, the national government, the stakeholders, and all non-stake actors, we sit together and discuss and be able to agree on the way forward. And the first step to do that is look at the policy and legislation, because that's where we have a problem, because water, as per our constitution, is a devolved function. But as you heard her say, the Act of 2002 Rio made it in a way that it was crafted as a national entity, and now it is a devolved entity. So that's where we have a lot of problems, and there is a need for us to sit together in a very sober way, in a very sober, rational manner, and be able to discuss and agree on how to move forward. Because the law allows us, both the county government and the national government to collaborate, to work together. So there is no barrier that we cannot collaborate. And water being a very important, vital resource for life, there is a need for the two forms of government to work together.
Martin,
yes.
They have addressed something that you alluded to earlier, the basic structure of democracy that formed the larger democracy for Netherlands. Now, here's a question where the lower person at the grassroots level is able to make decisions on how this resource called water will be distributed among themselves. And it is the same that has escalated to the higher levels and authorities that there is. Therefore, as a stakeholder in matters to do with climate change, we know that Netherlands stands ahead in terms of climate change. We know that you get energy by just burning plastics and waste. Therefore, when it comes to something as water distribution and the democracy, the need for both levels of government to work together, how do we go about it? What would be your advice to both parts of the community?
Well, let me first say, and I think it's a very good discussion here already, many people feel that water leads to conflict. But I would say water inspires to peace. And that depends on how you govern it. And what I just told you about the water boards that we have that are being elected, there is no national regulation that can interfere in what the water boards that are locally elected decide. So the interaction between the water users that we have, you were talking about the water resource users associations. For us, those are the water boards. The users of water have a direct contact to those water boards and the people who are being elected there. And in the boards, we see representatives of the farmers, we see a representative of industry, we see a representative of inhabitants, and they sort out these questions. And the model is always to discuss. Like we were sitting here at the table, we have a word for that in the Netherlands. We call that polderen. Now, a polder is, of course, the area reclaimed from water. And why do we call that polderen? Because polderen for us is discussing until you find common ground. And just not accept that the common ground is not there. And this is what we mean if we talk about integrated water resource management. Because in integrated water resource management, what we try to do there is bring all those different interests around the table and start to discuss with each other. So how can we find common ground here? And that has to do with different uses. Of course, the farmers, when they want to irrigate, they have other demands than maybe those, the drinking water companies. And there are the person protecting nature and bird life, for instance. And there are so many different aspects here that you need to bring together. And then it's not only the different interests, but also the different phases. You have sometimes a situation in which you talk about land degradation or there's pollution. That requires other measures. And different interest groups can think differently about solutions. But in the end, there's always a solution that brings everybody together. And that's what you need to look for. And that is the basis of the integrated water resource management.
And now, even as we continue to have this discussion now, the matter now, let's just take a short commercial break. We shall be back with much more.